And welcome back to AR Tales, aka the ART podcast. I am Amina Bal, and today we have an all-female guest group cast. Finally, I cannot tell you how hard I've actually been trying to get this one together. We have Brittany Leonard, Laurie Oknowsky, and Victoria Maurice. I was gonna say Maurice. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
So I wanted to start off as usual with where people can find you, social media links, publishers you want to promote. If your cat has a website and you want to drop it, this is the time. Brittany.
Yeah. So I just released my very first book 2 weeks ago. It was co-written with my dad. Thank you. It's a story my dad told me about why we have shadows. And so I wrote it out and illustrated it for him. And it's available on Amazon. It's called The Life of a Shadow. And yeah, it's about why we have shadows. It's very it's a good family story about how we have shadows because they're made up of our parents and they remind us that we're loved and we're never alone. So in the story, she goes through different situations where she's struggling with different new experiences, from first day of school to bullying to moving away from home, things like that. And then at the back of the book, there's actually photos as well so that kids can make their own shadow puppets.
Oh my God.
That's cute.
I have to get that for my son.
Oh, he would love it, I hope.
Aww.
Yeah. How old's your son?
He's 3. He's now he's at the door whining and he's saying to me, "What do I do? What do I do?"
Oh wow.
The soul man right there.
I can't help it. Oh. And now he's crying.
Oh my God.
Well, except for you had to say crying right before you started crying. I was gonna say that's production quality right there.
Oh no!
But now I look like a weirdo.
He's a major manipulator. Don't let things deceive you.
Oh.
He uses his cuteness, and there's not going to be any tears from his eyes or anything, because within moments he'll stop.
Right.
That's all full of that. Everything I'm hearing on the other side of the door is like dry tears. It's crocodile
That's on
tears.
parenting.
He's not crying. Now Daddy's back in the house, and now he's okay. Suddenly he's fine.
Wow.
You know what?
That idea of wanting their adult there, right by their side, visible.
He just wants me. He wants me. I mean, I should love it, Oh, he wants me. It's not like that. He just wants in on everything. But he would love that because he loves, things like where he can create things, and he loves stories. So, I mean, what kid doesn't love stories? But, he loves to be told really good stories.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really love the whole marketing aspect of it. In the bio for your episode when it released, I remember I think I wrote at least 1 or 2 more paragraphs than I normally do for the bio, just because I was like, oh, but then this part for the elementary schools, I mean, shit. And then just all the different little aspects of it, I thought that was just such an innovative, just not only marketing tool, but also it's awesome for the whole essence of what the book is. It's a children's book. And then at the end, it also ends with a little activity for them to go along with. Awesome.
Yeah.
But there's an author that I met on TikTok that has a book where he tells the story from the point of view of a tortoise.
Oh, interesting.
It looks really interesting. And I mean,
yeah. I think that person also has a Twitter, I believe, and they're pretty active on that.
Yeah, it's an older gentleman, and he wrote and it's a great book for kids. I mean, he starts it, I think he says his target range is from the age of 8 and to 12 or something like that. But any child would love a story like that, and it's just really strange. He has a human character in it, but the story is from the point of view of a turtle. And I just saw that and I was like, oh, that is so interesting. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but they've done books like that before for children where it's told from the point of view of the animal. They've done that with dogs. They've done that with, you know, cats, to where the animal runs the story and it's from their eyes. It's just interesting.
Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the whole
yeah,
Looney Tunes, you know?
yeah. No, real animals, my dear, real animals.
Bugs Bunny is a real animal. You're telling me there's not 6 foot, you know, bunnies walking around, eating carrots, talking like a doctor, cross-dressing? I don't know. If that's not in your reality, I don't want to be there. But anyway, Brittany, social media links, where can people find you, website?
Yeah, I'm at author Brittany Leonard on Instagram, and I have a website, authorbrittanyleonard.com. And you can find me there on either of those places. And there's book links too in both of those places. And if not, then you can always buy it on Amazon as well.
And make sure you do. Laurie, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Inked. It's Laurie Writes Stories. Facebook, it's under Laurie Beth. I have a website, laurieoknowsky.com. And my Instagram is Laurie Writes Stories, Laurie _writes _stories.
Awesome. Vicky, where can what's the home and beacon?
On Instagram, it's at Christy M01, and Wattpad, same thing, Christy M01. That's all I have for now.
Well, that's actually a great kind of a segue into what I want to start off with anyway. How do you feel about the whole, not just marketing, but really the social media presence that not only is required and you're currently doing, but a level that you want to achieve? Like, what do you think you're missing in order to get more people in your platform, get more viewership, get more readers to buy the books?
Well, that has been a pretty big issue, especially for me, because I'm naturally not such an outgoing person, and I kind of have to just be like, okay, the door is right there, just walk through, it's okay, you can get through it. And it's like little by little, I'm just kind of trying to create this bond with my followers that I guess I should have worked a little bit harder on before, and I'm kind of late to. So now it's like it's giving me a little bit of an issue, but it's like a really good lesson to learn. And like in the future, at least now I know that, you know, before doing promotional tours and stuff like that, having like this group of people that already knows you and everything, it's like they're already there for you and they'll just spread the word themselves instead of you having to do the majority of the job, you know. So
well said.
Yeah,
well said. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Nikki, 33 and BB. I always call it 33 and Me.
Mm-hmm.
She has a great, every time she drops like a post, there's always like a couple of just avid fans that always comment on her. Just what she's doing as far as engagement is phenomenal. If you do like her like average, like if you just go on her Instagram, her average like post get like a couple hundred views and likes and whatnot, and she's at like not even at 2,000 viewer, like a follower level. You go to a person that has double that amount and they don't even have half the amount of views per post. So that's one of those things. I think that's indicative right there, that I think everyone, especially with the follow loops that we're all that we all hop onto and everything, it's all with this idea of like a number. Like, oh, when I get to a 15,000 follower level, then I'll be able to really market my shit and, like, you know, get like a higher viewer base. But really, I think it's more like what's the
quality
word?
Of
exactly. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's more like community outreach and actually having a community of people that actually like are responsive and ready to, you know, buy your shit. And as you said perfectly, there's actually two analogies you said really well. It kind of goes to the Matrix. It's like, you know, I can only show you the door. You have to be the one to walk through it. You know what I mean? Like we can know everything about it and spend hours on research, but we have to be the one to wake up at 7 and start doing all the follow loops and doing all that shit in order to actually do it. And that right there is the catch-22 because we're writers. So like, what the fuck do you want? Like, do you want me writing or do you want me marketing? You know, how do you find the balance?
What was that person's Instagram called? 33andMe?
No, I always call it that because of 23andMe or whatever, but it's 33 and BB, I'm pretty sure. It's her name is Nicolette Beebe. She's the author of Marking and the coming soon Sir Bennett. Hey, shout out to Nikki, right? But yeah, just it's not
33, N is in Nancy, B. So it's BEEBE.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not only that, and she's great, but she's just an example. There's multitudes of other people. Medea, I believe she's more on Twitter than Instagram. Another one that is just phenomenal. I mean, she started self-publishing 3 years ago, and she has a Netflix deal this year. Like yeah, that's a real story. That's a real thing.
Who?
Medea. I can't remember her last name. Medea K. Like her series is called No, it's not called Hot Cakes. Honey Cake series. It's also a book series, actually. It involves like interracial families and like acceptance. That's actually really cool and like nicely illustrated as well. And again, real story. She went from, having a completely non-writing related career to just going like, hey, 3 years ago, hey, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna start writing these little books. And then 3 years later, she's talking about a Netflix deal. That's real. So, but to be fair, her background was in marketing and all that type of stuff. So when she hit the ground running, she showed me different posts that her book was being advertised in like not Times Square, but like the Times Square of her town, like where they have like all the
big
screen bullshit and posters and billboards and whatnot. And she was on those, and she was on like legitimate radio shows and all those things. And one thing that I took away from her was that she said that a lot of people think that is all due on the side of an agent or the side of a publisher, that you needed that representation in order to get through those doors. But she said simply just being at the door, again, going to Vicky's analogy, is all you need. It's like the I can't remember who said it about power, but like most of the time it's just about wanting. It's not even about all these crazy things about X, Y, and Z. It's just showing up and being like, yeah. I'll take it. And that's it. And knowing that, and particularly Brittany, I'm interested in just because now Down a Business just also recently came out. So I'm not 100% sure I guess the three of you all have pretty recent releases. So I'm interested to hear on everybody's like take on it, but how do you deal with that whole marketing scheme and the release of your new books? Because I myself, I've said 1,000 times, I haven't even released my book yet, and I'm facing constant like, oh, maybe I should push it back one more week. Oh, maybe one more week, just because I feel like I'm not, especially after hearing Medea, who am I to like not, have my shit on Times Square and, be standing next to Joe Rogan, like, hey, he sold my book. I don't even know. But like, how do I step up to that plate? And not only that, what actually engages into real readership, right? Because you hop on Twitter, there's people that have 15,000, 20,000, but are those followers translating into book sales? Or are those just superfluous numbers that you're raising out of your own, I don't even know what?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Angel. That's a really, really good point, because that's one of the things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing about the follow trains and the loops and things like that. Because yes, it is a numbers game. And what do I want? Do I want followers? Do I want to follow people? Or that really, number one, may not even have any kind of idea or interest in reading my book? Or do I want to, have people that genuinely either are interested or have read my book following me? So where's that happy medium? I personally, I only do it sometimes to support people that are, within my, if anybody, if any friends of mine tag me on those, I do it to support them, not necessarily to support others. And to be honest, that may be a kind of selfish thing to say, but in a way, I want to make sure that if I'm following someone, you know, support is a two-way street, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily follow someone just to give them a number on a follower. Yes, it's good to have that kind of numbers. I mean, I have 1,700, a little more than 1,700 followers on my Instagram. But of those 1,700 followers, how many of them am I actively following and participating in their journey? Not many, you know. It's kind of like the same thing when you're going to school. Do I want to have a lot of friends to be popular, or do I want to have a core group of friends that I know that are always going to be there and support me, that don't use me for a number? You know, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because at the same time you need your name out there because you want to sell books. That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? You know, but at the same time you also want to make sure that the people, like Brittany said, quality. It's not always about the quantity, it's about the quality of your follower. You know, we're all there to support one another, and it's great that you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 followers. But at the same time, you know, why are they following you? What's their motive?
Yeah,
definitely.
You know,
that's why I made that's why I brought up Nikki, you know, just because it's like, if you do those comparisons between like viewer engagement versus follower count, and you do that comparison to like other big name accounts, what always blows my mind, and tell me if I'm wrong, doesn't it blow your mind that you can hop on to the author that creates a book and they'll be at like, you know, 2,000 followers, 50 to 100 likes a post, then you'll go to the person that read their book, 20,000 each post, like 2,000 likes. What the fuck are they doing? What are they doing? What is it? What is it that they have such a higher like viewer count, such a higher like community and active community? I mean, like, not even on the like thing. To me, the more indicative thing about a post as far as the engagement is comments. You know, if you're getting a couple hundred likes, I mean, anybody can do that. Well, I can't say anybody can do that, but it's relatively easy to do that by just going by whatever fad or whatever trend people are going through. But to get people commenting on your posts, to actually represent that people are, you know, paying attention. If you ask a question and people are actually answering it, it means people are kind of paying attention. You know what I mean?
Well, you also know that you are aware that you can buy followers too.
Yeah, but followers aren't commenting. You know what I mean?
No, but people, you're talking about people that have, you know, like large
that is
numbers
true.
of followers. People can buy followers. It's, you know, they're bots that people can pay for that increase your numbers of followers.
Yeah.
You know, that to me is not indicative of somebody that's successful. You know,
to be fair, the music industry does the same thing though. I mean, like when you hear about like some rapper that just blew up overnight, it's usually because the industry was like, oh, we can definitely get at least a break even on this ROI. And they'll just, you know, spend, $250,000 on marketing, 10,000 to get like a couple million people, and literally overnight. The whole analogy of overnight before, to me, was always kind of bullshit, because people always say overnight, but they don't count the 10 years of work that artist did prior that actually got them to that one day. But today, I feel like nothing else, there really is that possibility. I mean, if you do a flashy enough TikTok video, boom, who's not going to sign you? You know, just inflate your numbers, blah, blah, blah. Oh, she already has, market compatibility. I don't even know what terms they use. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And they just build this image and they just break the money in after. So I guess like the heart of what I'm like, my wonderment is how can you decipher between what's real and what's not in this kind of like social media world? How can you be going between and actually get to the heart?
I don't know really if you ever really do get there. That's the whole thing, you know. it's something that you kind of have to decipher on your own, and what you want and what you actually want to get out of, you know, your platforms that you use. You know, I have believe me, there's plenty of times that I kind of I I self def I yeah, myself, and I'm all about instant gratification. If it's not happening now, well then what's the point of continuing to work on it, you know? And then luckily I have my husband who it kind of metaphorically slaps me back into reality and says, Laurie, this is not going to happen overnight, and it's something that you have to go ahead, and this is coming from somebody who has absolutely no motivation to do anything whatsoever, but
you wrote 2 books, so that obviously can't be true. And like no, 600,000 words each. Come on, what are you talking about? That's like 12 books.
Look, I have motivation to do something, but it's where I wanted to do, and I always compare myself to other people, and I always kind of say, well, what do they have that makes them a New York Times bestseller, and I'm sitting, you know, here, and I'm nowhere near that. You know, and my husband has his, my husband is very talented art wise. He was an art teacher, but the military really did a number on him. So he can say it all he wants to me and says, calm down, you know, you just have to do this, you have to be patient, and you have to just keep working at it. You know, but it doesn't mean very much when I look at what I have to do, and I'm kind of like, God, what's the point in all of it?
Out of curiosity, Laurie, do you garden?
I have a 3-year-old. I'm surprised he's still alive. You want to ask me if I garden?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Like my mom was always into gardening, and I just never could find the point in it because I was just have that exact same energy of like, you know, right now. The moment I started gardening, really changed the deal because you plant the apple tree, you want the apple tomorrow, but you're not getting an apple for like 7 months. So you got to sit there. It's like almost philosophical. It's like, damn, but I want an apple. Is it even worth planning? I can just go to the Stop and Shop. You're doing all this like mental math at the same time. It's like, all right, but what else am I doing? I could just plant this apple, and then 7 months later, which is like no time, I'll have an apple tree.
It's like there are these moments when like you get to a crossroad, like especially like what Laurie said about comparing yourself to others, especially, and like there's some moments when you're like, well, should I just do what they're doing? You know, like even if you feel like you're kind of moving away from what you actually want to portray, and then you're just because like as you said, you know, those celebrities, those people that just have everyone talking about them, they always say any publicity is good publicity. That's why there's so many like scandals that come out of nowhere, and it's like people just start talking about them, and it's like at the same time you're like, oh
I just realized it. Sorry to cut you off. It's just I had an epiphany. Man, did you hear what Laurie said to fucking Brittany? Oh my God. Jesus.
Yeah. What?
She went too far. She went too far. I don't know.
Yeah, I take it back. I don't want my kid to read her book, okay?
I'm sorry, Vicky. You were actually on a great roll there.
Yeah, so it's just it's like these moments when you actually just need to have some time for yourself and realize exactly like what you are after. And then I feel like the second you kind of realize that, you're kind of like, okay, so now what's the game plan? And I feel like in those ways, I always try to be extremely realistic, meaning I'm like, it's not going to happen overnight. But at the same time, I'm like, well, why does it have to be so long though? Like if I just did that, maybe that would happen. It's like,
why do I have to work so hard?
Exactly. But it's like, you need to realize that what you are after is actually worth it. And there are those moments that are going to come where you are going to feel like you can't go anywhere. And I feel like those are the moments when you just need to take a break and like reflect on everything and see, you know, like take a step back. Like when you're in the mass, you can't really see where you're going. So taking a step back and like looking at it from a different angle can allow you to, you know, find like a clearer route, even if it's still going to be.
It's something in my head. It's probably because I have children's television shows and music on a loop in my house. But the moment you said take a step back, I'm like, oh God. And then the song started playing in my head from Daniel Tiger, take a step back and ask for help. And, and it's so funny because my kid starts dancing around. He's like, take a step back and ask for help. It just all of a sudden, not to get off topic, but that it just, as soon as she said that sentence, I'm like, oh no, now it's going to be in my head for this whole entire episode. Thank you. Appreciate that.
There's something, I call it like, I don't even know, like audio crack or something. I don't know. There's something about those songs that they make for children. It pierces through your psyche. I will go and spend a couple hours with my niece and she'll have, what's that show? Coco Melon?
Oh God, my son
first
loves that.
You eat the peas and then you ate the peas and now it's all done. Now you're eating oranges and now you eat the oranges and now they're all done. And I'll tell you, all the songs are just like that. It's like literally they're just like sing-songing their life experience. I want to take a shit, then I use a huge wad of paper to clean my ass.
Well, yeah, they have a song where he's going on the potty. Dude, you would think that would help a kid go to the potty. It doesn't.
I'm losing my mind. The craziest part is that, like, you want to talk about mind control, put a kid in front of a TV. I'm yeah. Camila, put the hand in front of her face. Yeah.
Oh God, Baby Shark is the worst.
Oh my God. I don't know what it is. And the thing is that again, it's like, it's not even Faulkner or like Hemingway type writing. It's like, then again, it's children. Then again, I don't know.
You can't bombard a kid. You can't bombard a kid at 3 years old to Faulkner and think that he's going to understand and comprehend it. My son still says to me, he's like, well, mommy, what's this? And I tell him, well, what's this? Well, mommy, and it's like, I just explained it to you. It's 2 o'clock. Well, why is it 2 o'clock? Because it is. That's the time of day.
If I can be honest, one of the most interesting things about like this industry is that like the things that we make and the things that we interpret from other like creators, they aren't necessarily things that we have to stew on at that moment. I can't tell you how many things I watched and like movies that I watched when I was a kid and I had no idea. I mean, like 80% of it just flew over my head and I was just watching like, flying colors and like cool, like cool outfits. And I just like that aspect of it. And it literally, without even having to rewatch the movie as an adult, it just stewed with you. And then you like start developing all these philosophical principles when you have them. And it just kind of like all like, goes together. I mean, Dr. Seuss, if you actually go into his books, that shit is dark. And specifically all the Hansel and Gretel like mythologies, they're literally horror stories. But yet they were translated into like children's stories.
Well, yeah, but they did a lot of butchering to what the original fairy tales were. Fairy tales were never meant. Fairy tales were never meant for children. They're adult stories. But I'm the morbid kind of mother that my kid wants to hear Cinderella. I'm going to read him the real one. But
but you don't want to read him Faulkner? Come on.
First of all, Faulkner, for other reasons, I wouldn't share with him. But
with Faulkner,
Yeah. Just like there's reasons why Jewish weddings we don't play Here Comes the Bride.
Oh, okay.
And the composer of, not to get into it, but the composer of, and I found this out when my husband and I were getting married. Here Comes the Bride was written by a very close friend to Hitler, and to mock people going into the ovens, he would play Here Comes the Bride. So hence why Jews don't play Here Comes the Bride at weddings.
The historical significance of things really changes everything, huh?
Right.
Yeah, well, it puts things into perspective, that's for sure. So, but yeah, I when I tell my kid a story, my sister got very mad at me the other day because we were at the house and her daughter lost her tooth. And I said, I must have said something because my sister and my brother-in-law said, Laurie, shut up. She still believes in the tooth fairy. I'm like, oh. I said the tooth fairy supervisor. Who's the tooth fairy supervisor? You are. She's like, Laurie, shut up. Because I kind of broke the truth to her and said that there is no tooth fairy. It's really your mother who was late with the money. I'm a really bad aunt.
Oh, well, it happens. It's not like you intended it. But it was a great.
She's old enough. I would think that she would believe that the tooth fairy no longer exists. I guess I was wrong.
I believed in Santa until, I don't know, I think I was like 8 or like 9 or something like that. The thing is, I figured it out. Like I remember I just didn't believe it. Like my mom, I mean, to this day, I asked her, I can put her on, I can call her up right now, put her on speakerphone, and she's gonna be like, no, what do you mean? Santa Claus is real. Stop being a little shit. You know what I mean? You fuck up, you're not getting any toys at Christmas. Don't even mess around. But and honestly, I mean, like, God bless her. Like, I love that she has like that much energy about it. But like growing up, I was just so like, it's not real. Like I remember I used to like watch the Food Network with her, and they would talk about Santa like in third person. You know what I mean? Like, oh, his markability is crazy. Look, all the candy and all this shit. And I was just like, hey, why would they be talking about him like this if this is like a real person? Like, imagine having like a documentary about Jesus, and they're like, oh yeah, this is where we make all this shit. Look at the shirts and all the money we're making off from this year. Oh, dude, it's crazy. Like, it's just like, it was just like right then I was like, yeah, it's not
everybody sense. Would be on the naughty list then.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Now, kind of the segue, that actually kind of segued into something that I wanted to get into, which was the whole idea of children's books in general. Now, specifically Element, which is the graphic novel that Brittany's working on, right? And I definitely want to let her get into a little bit of it in a second. But the reason that I want to bring it up is because Element is more of a, I'll let you define it. Would you call it a YA? What age frame would you place it in?
It'll be for 12 and up. Yeah, the odd swear word and stuff in there. And the content of it too, it's looking at environmentalism, which is fine for any age group, but also mental health, which I feel like younger kids probably learn a little bit about with like trusting adults. But I think it's really important for like preteens and teens to start learning about.
And social media, right? I mean, the same memes we laugh about, they get to laugh about too, and they eventually have to understand why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a graphic novel, young adult, ages 12 and up. I don't know, what else do you want to know about it?
I would love to actually break into like a little bit more of the actual like themes of it with the whole pollution and everything. But the reason I brought it up was, how do you handle like the marketing and like your viewership as an author when you have the children's book of The Life of a Shadow, and then you have the YA coming out? Do you think that there's a different type of marketing that you need to do? Do you think that there's a different type of way that you need to handle the community outreach?
Yeah, I would say like when I started my Instagram account, really I started it for Element. This children's book was a project that like a year or two ago, my parents were like, hey, like we want to write this book. Will you illustrate it for us? Right. And I ended up like publishing it for them, like doing all the stuff between two. But so I think right from the get-go, like even when it comes to sales of this children's book, I don't think I sold any to my Instagram followers, just based off of, I can see all the copies have been purchased in Canada. And I'm like, I don't think, so a lot of my followers are in Canada, but a lot of them are in other English speaking countries. So I feel like they would have ordered from like Amazon.com or like .uk or something. So anyway, so I can tell that I'm pretty sure nobody from my Instagram bought the book. But I mean, like I said, when I started the account, I was starting it like when I follow people and like interact with people, I tend to follow and interact with people that would be more into YA fantasy. So that's probably why nothing really came about in terms of sales for this one. Yeah, and I mean, I'm a teacher, so for me, I have that as an advantage, right? Like I've ordered copies for all of our elementary schools in the district, and I'm going to be giving them out free copies with the hopes that the librarians will be like, hey, check out this new book. Teachers, you should read it to your students. And then the teachers will be like, I love this book. I need a copy for my classroom. And then the kids will go home and be like, Mom, Dad, Auntie, I read this cool book at school. Buy it for me, right? So that's how I'm really approaching marketing with this one, because little kids aren't on Instagram, right? Parents and teachers, but
man, that's a good point.
So
yeah, you're going to have to do two different types, and you are doing it, two different types of marketing strategies, because especially with YA, is such a broad spectrum of genres and target audiences, because even a lot of YA books adults read too. It just depends upon how deep you get into certain types of subject matter within YA books. The same thing with romance. I write for some strange reason, it was always something I gravitated to. Quite honestly though, I tried to stay away from historical romance novels only because it's so much research. And not like it's a problem to do research. I don't mind it. I love doing research. But with a 3-year-old, it's not the easiest thing to do all day. I can't. But with YA books, especially, a lot of like that Shadow and Bone that's now coming out on Netflix, which I'm so excited about. I haven't even read the book, so I'm just excited for the show because it looks great. But that's a YA fantasy, and the things that it touches upon, I mean, any age group can really read it. Graphic novels. Another thing that you have to have a liking for it in the first place. Not everybody enjoys a good graphic novel. It's not something that you necessarily see a lot of anymore too, because it takes
not
a lot
anybody
of work
I want to hang out with.
Well, I mean, but like I said, it's just a certain type of reader that enjoys them, and it's a different marketing strategy with graphic novels.
Like compared to other authors, like I definitely end up marketing a lot in terms of art, like not my own art, but like I'll post what I'm working on, or I'll follow other comic writers and comic artists and things like that. So
which is so funny though.
It's also about the graphic novel piece.
But graphic novels to me are not, and that's a distinction too that you have to make very clear as well in your marketing. It's not a comic. Your storyboards are more detailed. Dialogue is different than with a comic. And the way that with writing a regular book, like a novel and a graphic novel, it's a difference between show versus tell in one with the other. So there's a there's different distinctions between comic and graphic novel.
Is that distinction just length? Like graphic novels are longer and I mean, show versus tell, that's the capabilities of a writer. I don't think that's like a medium thing.
Yeah, but the way that it comes across in graphic novels is different than how it would be used in a novel without any images. Because it's a visual.
You only have captions and
right.
So it's more like a lot more showing. So
but so it's a difference between the two. With novels, that's something that I always had a problem with as well, is show versus tell, because I know what it looks like, and to have to have a reader understand it with using more showing than telling it's different, which I would think that marketing would be a difference as well.
Well, I'm a huge art freak too. So like I'm right there with you. All my marketing scheme as a whole, which is why I love the whole thing that you said about the whole that you can just tell that the majority of your sales weren't from the main thing that you're using as a marketing tool. I mean, I can just hear you. Not even just with the marketing of the book, but just the marketing as like, as far as like the podcast or YouTube. It's unreal where I'll put energy into one platform and then I'll get a boost, but all those boosts come from, like, if you were to graph it, it's like the epicenter. None of it are coming from where I'm marketing, and it's all coming from like random other things, just like a coincidence. Like it's the only thing you could really like sum it up to. It's unreal how that type of like shift just happens, and specifically with art, because I mean I love art, and like to me it's just like specifically your stuff, because like you work on your own art, Brittany, and like that you're actually like showing like the steam, well not the steam, like the stream of consciousness that you're going through when you're working on your on element, and just everything alongside with it. And as far as the marketing goes between graphic and comic, as Laurie was bringing up, to me the only difference between those mediums are length. To me, like a comic book, I mean I can hold a comic book up and they're like little flabby things, and really a graphic novel is just maybe like double that length. It's maybe just like a little bit bigger, depending on which ones. I've seen graphic novels that look like Bibles, but for the most part, to me, the only distinction was maybe art style, just because I guess like comics are kind of limited to the idea of like, Marvel and like DC. But I think like Dark Horse and Vertigo, they make some pretty intense comics too that look just as intense as, the Sandman graphics that are made by Neil Gaiman, who's a graphic novel artist, whatever you want to call it. But he also makes comic books too. So I like that, even that in a sense is pretty interesting. And while I can't really make the distinction, just the fact that Laurie bring that up, that distinction must like exist. So how do you handle with that? Do you think that there's a way to market graphic novels that's different than comic books, or do you think they just kind of lend into one another? Because right now while maybe graphic novels are in a decline, I personally don't have the data to like support that, but comics seem to be on the rise, like MF, because you have Marvel, the biggest movie franchise ever. You have DC like trying to make a swing at the bat. So I think that like I think there's a room to grow, and specifically if you kind of like dabble into that like market a little bit and just like kind of show off more of the fighting martial art aspects of the book, and then kind of like lead people into the more YA elements, into the pollution. And again, I think those are all great marketing schemes as well.
Yeah, I tend to kind of agree with you. Maybe I don't even know the proper definition, but yeah, like graphic novels or like trade paperbacks typically have like 4 or 5 issues in it, right? Where you could buy them separately as like separate chapters.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I hear you.
Would be like your comics that you have.
So a graphic novel is composed of comics, basically.
Yeah. So Laurie, you might even have a different like thought on it. I don't know. Is that how you would say it, or is it? Do you have?
I don't. My husband has 1 or 2 graphic novels here at the house, and whether or not, I've read them, I haven't. It's not something that I'm necessarily. The storyboards, to me, they're difficult to read. I can't. I find them beautiful. I look at them mostly for the art purposes. Right. Whether I would pick it up to actually read it, not necessarily, but I look at for more like artistic, the art that's involved in it, because I find them very intricate, very delicate to look at, but at the same time, jam-packed with most of the story comes in with the art.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
What is your favorite? What is a good example of a graphic novel that you think really knocked it out the park, and like for your standards and likes?
Well, the only one that I can actually comment on is the Twilight one. I've flipped through it. They did a Twilight graphic novel. And I only kind of saw it for what I thought the artist's interpretation of the characters looked like. which to be honest, were what kind of made me want to look through it. I don't own it, but my husband has a couple of graphic novels for Batman and the comics that he reads. But it's not something that I necessarily look into. If I'm at Barnes and Noble and we're in the graphic novel section, I would pick one up and look through it. But title wise, I can't tell you titles, but because I don't look at them that way. I don't look at them for story content. I look at them for art. You know, I have a Dormant Howl. When it was on Wattpad, I had art commissioned for it because there were certain scenes that I didn't feel like I would give it justice in description. So I had my artist friend do a lot of images for A Dormant Howl that I thought came out perfect, especially because they're not werewolves. They have a certain type of aesthetic and look to them. And nothing that I would be able to find. So she basically created what my characters in their animal form looks like. And they came out pretty damn close to what I kind of envisioned. So that leads me to another question. How do you guys feel about having illustrations in novels as a placeholder?
I just finished mine. Mine has like 22 illustrations in it. For that specific reason, because of the point of view in which I wrote it. Oh, you hear my voice crack a little bit. That's when you know I believe in it. But I same idea where, you know, if we were to make a graphic novel, we were to make any story about a person in today's age, are we going to divulge a whole 3 paragraphs to explain how an iPhone works to a person that might not know the iPhone? Of course not. An iPhone just works to you. So in my idea, unless I want to break narrative, basically, in order to explain the technologies and the scenes, I would have to include some type of illustration as a bridge of the medium. Now, luckily, beta readers have said that it's not like that much of an issue, but just I love the idea of the graphics. Now, as far as if all the money spent on them is going to even out, that's where we throw the money in the thing, do a little dance. I don't know. We'll figure that part out. But as far as my main thing, and it's definitely a philosophy I had to evolve into, is I'm more focused on making a work that I'm completely proud of. Just like, you know, that I can hold up to it and be like, yep, this right here, my name on it. You know, it's exactly my vision, how I want it to happen. That's more of what I'm focused on. And I really believe if enough passion is put behind it, then, you know, people will come. Now, whether that is necessarily true anymore in today's world is up in the air. I think Tim Heath, who has written, I think, like 20 books, I believe. I can't remember what number guest he was on, but I had him on before. And he said something I quote frequently, which is, in today's world, and he had started when Kindle was more of a thing, when, you know, there were a limited amount of authors. Like, his first books have like a couple thousand reviews on them. That's how like small of a community Kindle was when it first started. And he said that in today, how the market has changed is that the books that sell the highest aren't going to be the ones that are written the best, but the ones that are marketed the best. And that sunk my heart because I knew it was true.
Yeah.
But I guess there has to be a happy medium, right? I guess that's like the thing that I try to crack at with every episode, every Groupcast, every conversation. There has to be a way. And it brings up Vicky's point in a great way. And I'll definitely let you go into like down to business in a second. But it makes you question what you want to do in order to get to the path you want to be on, right? It's like, do I want to be and do the things that I see the authors around me doing in order to get that fan base, in order to get those viewerships? Am I going to have to start doing an Instagram live when I wake up and right before I go to sleep, and, you know, talking about how, you know, XYZ and look at my dog, and, you know, just getting all like, you know, all the things that people do in order that people are like liking, right? Becoming like a personality, becoming like a like almost like a surrogate friend to like thousands and millions of people. Do you want to, you know, are you willing to do that in order to get to your route, or are you going to just pighead your way in the route that you want to be doing until you achieve that, you know, until you get to that rainbow, until you get to that star at the end, whatever you got to do. How do you get to that, you know, how do you get to that pot of gold?
Well, and what's your goal? Is it to sell a certain number of books? Is it just, hey, I published a book, whoever wants to read it can? Is it you want to share your story with whoever will listen? Like, and I think that's, my partner actually asked me that after I published this book, and I was just like, that's a really good question. I don't know.
Good question.
And what's realistic, and yeah, like you have to decide on what you want, and exactly decide how you're going to get there. Are you going to do your own thing, or are you going to try what everyone else is trying?
Man, that is a really good point.
It's just drive me crazy because they change all the time.
Man, specifically with just how like the trends work and everything too. I mean,
yeah,
specifically like how everything is like a numbers game, and just the way that people change up. I mean, I guess it's great for Laurie and for Vicky, but romance is, I mean, taking every other genre over the lap and smacking. All right, romance is selling right now. Lord knows, just it is dominating every other genre. Like, not even in just to like oh, like it's doing well. I'm dominating other genres. As far as like I think the Kindle Unlimited, like that whole thing that instead of buying the book, you buy like a monthly fee, and then the authors get paid per pages read or whatever. I think that 80% of revenue that Amazon makes for that in total is all romance. One genre. Yeah. What? Huge. And the growth is just insane. But then but the interesting part there is that also goes to Wattpad, that goes to Inkit. I mean, romance is dominating every genre as far as like serializations and continuity. But then this is where it gets interesting. You turn that to ebook and hard book sales, and only like the top earners in romance are getting those type of numbers. So it's like, what is the, even in that aspect, where do you put your horse into? Is it the serializations that are going to get the money? You know, the Wattpad viewership that eventually leads into like a Patreon type of like thing, and people just like continually support you. There are authors that are supposedly making racks off that, and don't even worry about book sales at all. They just live off Patreon and residuals off of you know, having like Inkit or like Wattpad professional accounts or whatever. And that's how they make their money. That's how they support your family. They're making like decent amount of money. So, you know, Vicky, I'd love to hear you, especially with, you know, Down to Business. And if you could give people a little synopsis of what it is, you know, with the genre of what you were trying to do. But after that, could you also get into how you're treating not only the marketing of it, but also the whole thing that I just made the point of?
Yeah.
I just forgot.
It's okay. But well, basically, to put it in short, Down to Business is well, I don't think it falls on the YA anymore because they're like 26, so it's no longer there. But it's a new adult romance, basically a new adult romance. Yeah, thank you. It's a new adult romance, and through that work, I guess I tried to, especially since the audience that I was going after are more like Wattpadders, I tried to just bring something I felt like we just don't get enough of, you know, on Wattpad, you know, especially you mentioned something about romance really being the dominating genre, but especially on Wattpad, you know, like anyone that has ever been on Wattpad knows like the types of stories that you find and the ones that get the views rolling in, you know, and I feel like
that borderline porn. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I didn't want to say it, but if you could elaborate on that, I'd love to get into that too.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to create a story that I felt like had a great storyline, amazing and compelling characters, a great journey, and a few lessons for the person who is reading it. So it's basically about this young woman who is really at the beginning of her career, and she's trying to get her clothing line to go public. So she's about to release her first collection, and she meets this young man who owns a modeling agency who will be there to help her through that process. And through that, their relationship begins and flourishes. And through the story, you get to see the ups and downs of their lives and also the ways that it impacts the relationship altogether. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table, because I remember at some point I was reading and I was like, okay, I would love to see, something different, even though that's what's popular right now. Can we, shift things up a little bit? And then I realized, hey, if I can do it, might as well, And by bringing that, I feel like
I just mentioned the cover.
Laurie's been trying to get your attention for like 20 minutes. Every single time that she swings it, you look away. It is, I'm telling you, mathematical. Every single time she puts it up, you look away. Every time she puts it down, you look back. It is perfect.
The cover is awesome. Can I just tell you that? I love it.
Aww. It's so big. I never even realized. I feel
and they said mine was a brick. This is a good, it's almost as close to mine.
It's called down to business.
This is not a brick. It's like a boulder. Yep.
Can you tell these moments?
I don't really know much about Wattpad.
Ooh, Brittany. I mean, Vicky.
Go ahead, Vicky. Sorry,
yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
It's all right. I feel like Wattpad is a really good place to start, especially for someone who just especially if you are interested in like the youngins and what you're writing about is like romance and these stuff. It's a really good place to create a fan base. But at the same time, there are like the pros and cons of being a Wattpad author, especially now that so many more stories have started to go mainstream. So it's no longer just the talk of like the teens anymore. It's like you have Netflix that's producing movies, and now critics are in the mix, and then now you have all these reviews, and then there's like the stigma about the authors. So like so many things play against you, but at the same time, there are a lot of things handed to you, by using the platform. So I feel like to this day, I still use the same formula I used at the beginning. Like I go to stories and I guess I just look for, those interesting commenters that seem to have a good sense of humor, or like that really look deeper into the story and that you feel like will share your story with others. And I feel like you create that as you, like the people that you follow, and then the ones that you feel like will interact with you. That's the formula that has been working for me, and so far so good. So I'll keep using that because it really gets the word out there, because Wattpadders really are like that. They're their own little clique. So it will keep on working for me as I little by little transition into, I guess, the real world.
And the thing with Wattpad too, the more times you update, the more often you update, the more readers you get.
Yep.
That's a big one.
Yes, but it's not it's a slippery slope.
Forgo editing, forgo everything else. But if you're pumping out weekly,
that's my problem.
That's all people care
Wattpad.
about.
That's my problem with Wattpad. A lot of the times, people using, and it's a great platform to jump off from. It's a great jumping off point to get your stuff out there. I had everything that I was publishing on there that I just took off, so I'm only using Inked now. And then I'm on another one that is an up and coming platform called BookNet, which I have a Dorman Howell on it, and I also have all of my other books on Inked. Took everything off of Wattpad for a number of reasons, but something has to be really well written for me to get a hold of, to really sink my teeth into. Has to have proper grammar. It has to have proper punctuation, spelling, and that, because if I can't read it and it's not smooth and it doesn't hurt when I'm reading a book and you're using the wrong version of your, I can't read your story because it gets repeated over and over and over. It's the same damn mistake.
Throws you off.
There are things called thesauruses. There are things called spell check. And then you have, I'm ranting now, aren't I? I can't help myself. I'm an English major.
I can't help myself.
But those for some reason are the stories that have the most reads, and you know why?
Oh my God.
Why?
They're smut driven. They don't have a story. They don't have good characters.
Exactly.
They don't have redeeming characters. They don't have a plot. They just have a writer who has these sexual fantasies that she wants to get out on paper.
Yeah, and some of them are borderline crazy.
And some of them are borderline nuts.
Yeah, seriously.
As long as and Brittany's like, oh my God, I have to find these books and read them.
But you don't even have to go that far. 50 Shades of Grey sold more copies than the fucking Bible. So I'm going to run that by you one more time. The sexual fantasies of Stephanie Meyers is more readily distributed than the story of Jesus Christ.
Well, Stephanie
that was
Meyers
not written down for like 1,000 years. That was literally
Stephanie
just like
Meyers is not the author of that book, those books.
What is that? EL Games
or
whatever it's called.
Something.
EA Games.
James, something like that. Yeah.
But look at After. After was a Wattpad series.
Thank you.
I never read it. I'm never going to read it.
I had to sit through it. I had to sit through it. And I feel like these are the moments when like those are the revelations that I have. It's like when I watch these stories go from that, and then like the second I'm like 2 years older, I'm like, why the heck was I reading this? It makes no sense. So it's like you need to have that moment when you're like, do you want to be remembered like that? Because it's like right now your audience is a certain age and it works. Look, but the second they grow out of it, well, the money's already made, you know, so whatever, you know, you're laughing to the bank, but
no, that is a really, really good point.
The movie doesn't prove how crazy that book was. It was a roller coaster of emotions, and somehow it's like I feel like the author is trying to tell you that no, we're telling you what not to do, but you're shipping them the entire time, like telling them they'll end up together, whatever happens, but they're like, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, teenagers are not going to understand that from what you're saying. It's just so straight.
Teenagers don't have the mental capacity to understand that drugs are wrong, and they do them. I mean, you're putting out a book that don't do this, but then you're glorifying certain kinds of behavior. Exactly. And you're like, dude, this is not realistic. It's stupid. And they have, these are the books that have 10,000 reads. These are the books that have, you know, a huge following of people. And that's all fine and great, you know. But
and that's not to mention.
I picked them up and I put them down. I can't read them.
And that's not to mention the fact that, especially after it was written, it was like a One Direction fan fiction.
Yeah,
and
Harry
the main
Styles.
Character is Harry Styles. He was 17 when the lady was writing about. So,
and this woman's in her 40s. Let's not make that mistake. This woman's in her 40s. She's a freaking pedophile.
Like, what's going on?
Well, Vicky makes a great point, because I love like Sin City when I was a kid. I rewatched Sin City now, and I'm like, yo, this is misogynistic as fuck. I mean, like every single female character is in like, you know, a thong, and she somehow has the biggest gun you can imagine. And it's like, all right, what are we doing here? If you want to convey like a strong character, a strong female character, why can she not wear the exact same shit as these other fucks over here? I love The Matrix, but The Matrix also does that thing, although The Matrix does have a very unique style in itself. I mean, geez, every like other scene, it's like right? But one thing that kind of like took me back on Matrix, that, you know, you have Trinity, who's every single time has the tightest leather you've ever seen. Like, I want to know how they must have painted it on her every production day. Is the only way I can imagine. That's how tight the fucking thing is. And then you have Morpheus, the coolest motherfucker ever, who's just an all black, loose fitting, you know, nothing like accentuating, you know, whatever things make guys attractive. I don't know. But like, you know, he's just regular. Why can't we have that for female? Like it breaks my mind. And it's funny because when you're a kid and you're into it and you're like, oh yeah, she has a gun. She's badass. But it's the same thing that you said. 2 years later, you mature a little bit, and you're like, "Oh, what was I doing? What were they doing? They're 50. I was 15.
Yeah.
And at 17, I matured out of it. They're 50, and they wrote it.
Yeah.
Where the fuck are we? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's mind-boggling.
I swore like 89 times there. I kept that straight most of the episode. Then I was like, all right, let's go. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it NA-17 real quick. But Vicky was actually making a great point.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I didn't let her finish the point, and also about the synopsis of like Down to Business and everything. So go ahead.
I think I was done with that, but I think the the part that I was at was basically like those are kind of like the obstacles that we face, especially, you know, like the example that Laurie gave, you know, like you just got basically a summary of what to find on Wattpad. So even like finding small gems on Wattpad and authors that actually take their time to read through their stories and make sure everything adds up and it's smooth sailing and everything. It's like they don't get that kind of recognition simply because, well, the majority of us, especially the ones that are talked about the most, you already know what they write about. You know, it's just the smut-filled stories and nothing makes sense. So when you're trying to come with your own thing, it's like everybody's like, yeah, not interested, you know? So there is that going against you. But there's also, I feel like that's the reason why I chose to just stick to Wattpad and like go to fans that I know actually go and encourage the authors that they see doing good, because these are the people that actually are going to support you. And then these people will bring the people from the outside because, you know, they're making you mainstream, you know?
And then when you're finally able to go ahead and publish it, whether it's traditional or self-publishing, you know that you have the audience there.
Exactly.
From where you originated from. And knowing that when you put it out there and you actually publish it traditionally, you're going to have the genuine readers who really want to read your stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that kind of a sign that you have something?
No, I have like ADHD. I have this problem that I have like you know how people say they have no filter? I have no filter for like physical things. If I have like a thought in my head of like, oh, dude, touch that, but like, yeah, all right. I swear, like I went to the abstract museum in Spain.
What the heck this is?
I went to because I was trying to do that thing that, you know, I was trying to like put up, you know, like when people put the Eiffel Tower in their hands. I was trying to see if I can get it.
Oh wow!
But I couldn't. But
holding the whole universe.
Yeah, you know, I was like, I wonder if I could do that. That'd be a cool thing. But when I went to the Abstract Museum of Art in Spain, I swear to God, I almost got deported. Every single painting that I could get my hands on, I was like. I did it to the Mona Lisa. I did it to absolutely everything you can imagine. No. I got close to doing it to St. Peter's coffin in the Vatican, and I almost got by every guard you can imagine. It was unreal. But I was like 16.
You have to touch everything, don't you? So we can't bring you to a China shop, huh?
Oh no!
Oh no!
What are you talking about? I'm telling you, I go to a museum. My hands are there because I don't know what it is. I just have like this thing that like. I don't know, I guess I'm like a hippie, and I feel like if I can like touch it, I can get like I'm like closer to the artist, and I can like.
No,
understand.
You have a 5-year-old child in your head that just says.
I'll accept it. All right, I'll easily accept, especially with how I act and everything. I mean, like I'll finish off like the most like type of dinner you can imagine, and I'm having candy right after, like in like children's candy, not even like respectable candy. Like my candy has Scooby-Doo on it and shit. I'm telling you, like I have no self-respect when it comes to that. Which like, is why I think I'm great for target audience. You throw anything at me and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, love colors. But then I can also like really gotta get into like the philosophy of it and start like going off and off about it. I spent a good 3 hours one time discussing like the philosophical relevance of Scooby-Doo during like the hippie during the time that it came out in. And we're talking about Scooby-Doo. You know, whether that conversation was intellectual at all, I would disagree highly, because we're at the end of the day, we're talking about Scooby-Doo. So what am I doing really? But off of that weird ass tangent for me, you know, having ADHD basically. It does make me wonder, specifically with all the art related, is how Brittany, going back to you, a special guest, Kitty Cat McGee.
You just tuck her tail down for you.
No, that's how they show friendship and whatnot. Oh man, I used to have a cat in California called Carino, and she would, when cats do that thing that they like crane their head into you. You know what I mean? Like it's usually like right here. She would do it so hard that it really
like a punch.
It almost like emasculated me. It's like, all right, how do you have this much power? I'm like a guy, aren't I? I'm like a thing. I'm like way bigger than you. And you're like moving my head. I'm like trying to stabilize here and you're moving my head. How do you have this much power? It's crazy. It makes no sense. It's like, all right, I'm way bigger than you. If this was a kicking contest, you're done. But somehow, somehow you can move my head. It makes no sense. But anyway, I'm telling you, ADHD like a motherfucker. Brittany, the art as far as element, and again, if you can kind of go into a little bit of what pollution. Well, wow, I was gonna say what pollution is, but if you can talk about how pollution ties into your book and how those themes are all relevant to the concept that you're trying to convey, because I really like that idea.
You okay?
That you go out for writing a concept. You know what I mean? We go out with like a purpose. Like I want to talk about this. Like I loved how Vicky was talking about like, all right, I saw this in the market and I want to fill it with my gap. I think that's what authors. That's the best thing that an author can do. Everyone always wants to write like, oh, well, I like the Matrix. I wrote my version of the Matrix. But I think it's way cool when a person goes like, oh, I saw the Matrix. Here were my problems with it, and here's my version of that. I think that's like the height of it.
Yeah. So yeah, with Element, like it started, with basically wanting a project to work on. And then I was watching Inception, and I like was just so enthralled with the world building in that movie as they go into the different dreams and levels and stuff. And I was like, whatever story I write, I want like the world to be really cool. And that's part of the reason why I decided to do a graphic novel, was because when I started building the world in my head, I wanted to be able to show it to people and not have to describe it to people I want them to. So it starts off in Ontario, in Toronto. And they end up getting teleported to another dimension, and they end up on a planet that's divided into the 4 sections: air, water, fire, and earth. And so when they land there, the one girl lands in the air dimension, and that's where the pollution comes in. So there used to be a city there, and there's still a factory with like obvious plumage and smoke coming out and very toxic and all that. And then I looked into like the science behind like how all of these elements are connected in our own earth. And then the like pollution like spreads to the other dimensions, but in like authentic ways. So like carrying the toxins to the other dimensions makes huge impacts on the food chains, because then people or animals aren't going to eat things that are packed full of toxins, just like we're seeing that on our own planet with
fish.
Yeah, with fish, right? With plastic and like the hole in the ozone. I learned this the other day. It's like above the Antarctica.
Yeah,
it's like on the south of our planet.
Yeah, it's what's causing the rising. That's why people always talk about the rise in water pressure and the acidification of the oceans and all that. Because it's like melting ice cubes into the water of the world.
But there's no factories or like cars down there, right? It's the grasshopper effect from the rest of the world, right? Yeah.
Man, that is a really good point. Man, yeah. You actually didn't get into that, you didn't get into the whole animal aspect of it when we talked about it. That's awesome. Because the main thing that I took away from it, I mean, I can't say the main thing because so much of it is awesome. But one thing that I always remembered was, can you elaborate on the sun aspect of it and the whole shadow thing created from that? Like I always thought that was awesome.
Yeah. So one thing about this planet is the sun the planet isn't rotating around the sun anymore. It's stuck. So it's always facing the fire dimension is always facing the sun. So it's always super hot. It's always daytime there. And then the opposing dimension is water, which is always stuck in nighttime then because it never sees the sun.
Oh my God, that's scary as shit. I've always said water at nighttime is the scariest thing you can imagine.
That's
I don't know
true.
why.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in water at nighttime? It is fucking terrifying. It's like being in open space.
I don't think I ever have, but you're right.
It's fucking
I'm
terrifying.
thalassophobic for a reason.
Can't relate.
What would you rather, go into a submarine into like the depths of the ocean, or go
Oh God.
You know, I'll probably say submarine for the simple thing is that if I go, at least it's instant. I'm not trying to have this Titanic. Oh, save me, Jack. Nah, fuck that. If I'm going, end me. But at the same time, you know, I talk a lot right now because I don't have the option. You get me into a submarine, I might feel way different. Know what I mean? Like, I'm not claustrophobic, but if you ever gone like messing around in caves, quickly develop one, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's actually a really good question. But I've always said if you want to talk about real fear, just close your eyes and imagine yourself in a wetsuit in the middle of the Atlantic at midnight.
Oh my
Tell me
God.
you don't shit yourself 4 times. What? That's the scariest thing ever. Especially if the water's all calm and like the stars are reflecting into the ocean. I'm telling you, you would feel like you're in space. You're weightless.
This is scary imagery.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's scary as shit. My mind went there immediately when she started talking about the water dimension. I'm like, oh my God. That
because
is the
I'm
scariest shit
naturally
ever.
thalassophobic, so I'm sitting there like, oh God, okay.
Oh my God. Lord. But anyway, before I went and interrupted, elaborate, continue going with the whole elements thing.
Yeah, and then the night or the water dimension does see the moon. The moon still rotates, so that's kind of how they gauge when it's been a day once they see the moon again. And it does bring a little bit of light to that dark dimension at times, and other times it's just like super dark and scary. But yeah, so each dimension has its own like climate and color scheme and dangers and things like that.
My God. I just I said it during the episode and I'll say it again. I just have always loved that your world building because it's real, and I think it is like the most interesting aspect of world building. Like people always asking about topics and everything like that. And to me, I mean, world building is always on the topic for any discussion. I think it is the most important thing, even if you're not writing a fantasy. Even your world has to have some type of even if you decide to mirror our own reality, right, just to a T. Even that is world building in a sense, because you have to, are you gonna dial into Trump? Are you gonna dial into what political geopolitical landscape are you gonna go into? Even that reference point that you choose, it's world building. Yeah. So I always love just in any world building, but specifically yours, how it's just logical. There's no in the comparison to the Wattpad authors that Laurie and Vicky were talking about, there's no thing that you have to sit back and be like, wait, what the fuck are we doing? The moment you said that thing about the water being my mind just immediately went to the actual fear that I fear over that, instead of thinking oh, that doesn't make sense. It all just snaps together.
Well, that also comes down to what we were talking about earlier, quality versus quantity.
Boom, it always cycles back, people. I'm telling you.
We're recycling. We're being green.
Hey, pollution. I'm telling you, it all ties together. Come on.
But that's what it all comes down to as well, is about the quality of your product. And who is going to actually be the people that are going to buy into that product. There's a difference between just getting things out there and getting things out there for people to enjoy and to actually get something out of it. That's one of the reasons why I took my stuff off of Wattpad. And I find that it's also a different audience on Inked. It's you get a different type of quality on Inked than you do on Wattpad. There's lots of things with Wattpad that's we said clicky. Yep. That things that get attention from the corporate Wattpad are things that are really
questionable.
Questionable, lacking. Certain things on that platform work when other things don't. Number one, even if Brittany wanted to, she wouldn't be able to put out her kind of genre because it wouldn't work.
Well, Wattpad doesn't have it, but Tap does have a graphic novel thing, and that's owned by Wattpad. So if you ever did want to look into that serialization, Brittany, there is a couple different platforms.
Well, Wattpad was also purchased by Webtoon.
Hey, Webtoon is the one. But Webtoon, if you want to talk about underrepresentation, Webtoon breaks your heart. You'll see graphics on there that I'm telling you are up there with anything you will see on Marvel. And
I started reading
20 views on it. It breaks your heart. It's like, what?
Yeah, I started reading a couple of stories on there, and I mean, I don't like that. I like more of the realistic kind of drawings that they have, not really the cartoony. But you're smirking. But
you can't prove that.
But it would be more towards something that Brittany would do. And also too with the whole thing now with Wattpad removing stories unprovoked.
Oh yeah.
Without notifying the people that wrote them.
They got the Georgia eviction, huh?
Things being taken and then
Georgia does not give a fuck.
What?
No, I said you got the Georgia eviction because Georgia does not give a fuck. They say you're evicted, you are evicted.
Yeah.
That day.
Yep. And it's very hard to put it back on there, especially if people don't have backup of their stories. But also companies are stealing work from Wattpad without, people giving permission. So they're plagiarizing. And there's really not much Wattpad can do. That's also the bad thing about using them instead of publishing your stuff, because you have no legal recourse when you find it. You can go ahead and contact them and say, hey, you have my story. I didn't give you permission. Remove it. But there's nothing that you can legally do to get them to take it off, because they're charging people to read their books and not paying the original author.
Yeah, that actually seems 100% like you can do a class action for it. Just probably people don't have the financial responsibility or the financial capability in order to go up to that lawyering team. Because by definition, what you're saying, like, that when you write that copyright thing in the beginning of the book, I did a lot of research on it because I thought that I would have to buy the copyright and everything, but that's not how copyright works. The moment you write something and you say this is, you put your name on it, that is literally copyright. So if you can go to a court of law and say, hey, I wrote this in 2015, fucko over there, put it up in 2019, he's getting money off of, or she is getting money off of something that I wrote that is grounds for a cease and desist letter to whatever company that is. And that is 100% disbarment, meaning that you're entitled to recompensation.
Yeah,
for any money attached, and you can even throw a defamation suit on top of that. I've been getting into a lot of law lately over the year, especially with like everything going on.
Yeah. But people are not able to do that.
Exactly.
People are not able to do that, especially when they're an 18-year-old person who's writing a book, putting it on Wattpad, and some schmuck takes it and puts it on their website. They don't have the legal recourse to do that, and the company that they originally put it on, like Wattpad, won't do anything about it.
I mean, to be fair, legally, why would they? The moment they intervene, now they're responsible, and now somehow they owe you money too. I mean, to be fair, that's just how business is operated.
Yeah, but that's my point. That's a reason why I took it off. Now, if anybody goes ahead and takes, for example, class of 95, I have the protection of my publisher. Because you're stealing their product. They have the copyright they own your product.
Yeah, but what are they going to do differently than that Brittany couldn't do by herself? They're going to do the exact same thing you're going to do. Right, they're going to call some lawyer. And what, you think they're going to pay for the lawyer? Hell no, that's on your end. Even if it was a traditional like published thing, that's still going to be on your end. They're not gonna pay for a
I
lawyer.
worked for a publishing house when they had problems like that, and believe me, they've had problems like that. They had the means to take care of the legal fees. The publishing company I worked for, and believe me, I worked for an academic publisher, and they had doctors, lawyers, people with PhDs, master degrees.
To be fair, that makes a little difference though.
No, it's not a difference. They're still publishers. The publisher that Vicky and I both
academic
deal
is being sold to schools, so like they have like a constant stream of like bulk orders versus like word of mouth and just like going sale to sell to a regular person.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I can't think of the last time I ever ordered an academic book or even saw one in the bookshelf. It's all stuff that like schools or institutions already have like on hand.
No, the publisher that I worked for, no. They print physical textbooks. They print reference materials. They sell them in bookstores like Barnes and Noble. Go into Barnes and Noble, you'll see Taylor and Francis, Informa, any of their umbrella reference material and textbooks. They sell in Barnes and Noble. They sell at the college school stores. And they ship directly to the school. If somebody takes material, like when I worked for them, there was a author that I was getting their book ready for production. I didn't have to check any of the content for plagiarism because we didn't have that ability. When it was in production, they popped it, the production editor popped it into the software they had, and they noticed their language changed completely. He took the bulk of his research from other sources, didn't source anything, and they told him, no, you plagiarized 75% of your book. You have to rewrite it. Otherwise, we're not producing it. Because if it got missed and they shipped it out and they printed it, well, people would notice and there would be huge lawsuits, and the publishing company would have to pay those lawsuits. And that's what they've done it before. They did it all the time. There's Springer, there's Macmillan, there's Elsevier. All of those publishing companies, they have a lot of problems with plagiarism, and they have to pay for it if something happens. It comes from the publisher because you sign away everything when you sign with a publisher, especially big names like Elsevier and Springer. They pay for it. They don't make the author pay for it. They pay for it because it's their product.
Now, Vicky, what, as far as down to business and everything, now going on to like the whole world building aspect and everything, what is the how do you feel about world building in your book? And also, do you think that you'll ever dive into more of the fantasy aspect while bringing in some of more of those romances or more of the themes that you already have written for Down to Business?
I feel like for Down to Business, I didn't have to do much world building. It was basically just the way things are, and yeah, I guess it was more like bringing celebrity culture. I guess that was the main focus, because the two main characters are very well known in in that aspect. But I've really been interested in fantasy, especially. But I feel like I really need to be ready for that, because I try to be as authentic no matter what it is that I am presenting. I don't want something half done or lazy. So if I'm saying that it has to be done in, like, I don't know, 500 BC, then I have to have the language properly ready and translations ready, whatever it is that I'm trying to throw in there, I have to have it done. So yeah.
No, I'm sorry about that. Now, Laurie, can you go into a little bit of the world building for a Distinct Howl? or AKA distant growl, AKA desperate foul, whatever. DF.
You're just gonna constantly butcher my title, aren't you?
Well,
It's like it's like a bittersweet kind of a revenge thing. I don't know what it is, but
bittersweet revenge. Where's that coming from?
I'll get over it. I'll forgive you one day. I'll put you in the acknowledgments. I'd like to take a moment to thank
R.A. Marable
for constantly the misuse of my title.
Well, it's the whole thing. Now that I'm on publisher side, I want to make sure that I get all my lawsuits ready. So if anybody ever says anything, it's like, hey, that's not true. That's not defamation against distinct howl. That's defamation against desperate foul. Already getting in line.
There's no foul in my book whatsoever. Says you.
Trust you. That's 600,000 words. Like you have to use at least every word once.
There's no hens. There's no poultry of any kind mentioned in my book.
Ball?
Huh?
Other foul. A foul ball.
Oh, a foul ball. Yeah, and I don't know.
Or just a foul. You're telling me there's no foul people? Come on.
Yeah, there are. Okay, so world building. When we were talking about, things that we see on Wattpad and the overabundance and the overuse of certain types of genre and everything. So for some strange reason, I have always been more towards vampires and mythological creatures like witches and vampires. I've never really been into the whole aspect of werewolves. And so for some strange reason, I got into this whole thing with reading nothing but werewolf books and those types of genres on Wattpad and a couple on Inked. And so I just got tired of the overuse and the constant objectification of damsels in distress and weak females and alpha males and blah blah blah, wah sob, oh abuse, but I love him, bullshit. And I wanted to write my own version of what I hated. And I wanted to write about something that, number one, is different. Mythology is different, and not really done. I mean, even trivial things like the moon goddess's name is basically made up. There is no goddess Selene of the moon. Any cultural telling, folklore, no one is named Selene. I don't know where it came from, who started it, but it's a fallacy. So I did my own research. I chose to write about the culture of the Native American and the Celtic kind of Druid background. And I've done a bit of research on the goddess of the moon called Cara Dewen.
Shout out to her.
Huh?
That's the homegirl. Shout out to her.
Basically, she's the goddess of the moon in the Celtic. She's Celtic, so it would be Irish, Scottish, English, Welsh.
Anglo.
Yeah, but not really, because they're within the Anglo of that region. There are other folklores and stuff, but she is not only the goddess of the moon, but she's also she's considered the mother of certain creatures, and she uses her cauldron to bring forth these creatures. And within her story, she created what they consider werewolves. But in my story, they're not wolves. So when they transform or shift, they don't shift into wolf-like creatures where they're on all fours with long bushy tails and big fur, like, what you see in most of those stories. They're evolved human type creatures that are spirit animals that come out on whim. So they don't transfer or shift into animals. They're humanoid features with long arms, claws, long legs, kind of on hind quarters. And yes, they do have tails, but it's not necessarily, they're not furry. They have a more taunt type of aesthetic, like skin, but kind of like what a dolphin would feel like, with like about like more bristly. I have pictures of
like a sea lion.
Yeah, yeah, they have more like a bristled leathery skin to them. They have the fangs, they have the
Oh, like the
eyes.
werewolf from Underworld or whatever.
Yes and no, they are more human in their features. To me, the Underworld wolf lichen is a lichen that stands on two legs, but they have faces like a beast. It's more like Michael Corvin's hybrid, what they look like.
The homie. Shout out to him too.
But that's what I was going more for. So the moon goddess is not Selene. They don't have a they don't die from silver. If anything, they
platinum.
No, ivory.
Oh.
So
Okay.
if you get shot with a bullet,
ivory. I thought you said
ivory.
poison. I thought you said ivy, like poison
No,
ivy. I'm like,
no.
damn, that's
Ivory,
an L, huh? You're gonna die out
folklore.
quick.
The Celtic folklore actually says that ivory is deadly to them. So what I would probably have, and silver can hurt them. So like if they're shot with any kind of bullet, it would be a silver bullet laced with their gunpowder would be laced with ivory. So it could be deadly. Yeah. So that's basically how I'm writing a story that's an anti-rejection story based upon what the girl in the story doesn't want to settle down with a mate, and the lengths that she wants to go to keep herself from finding that mate so she can live the life that she wants to live.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How unique.
So she basically becomes a martyr because what she does to herself essentially turns her human.
Oh.
Now that and ivory, that's elephant husk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to kill an elephant to kill a damn. That is a chain of events, huh? And even more interesting, the Celtic. Do they have elephants? Where would they even get ivory from? Oh, I guess trade, right? That's weird. Where would they get that from? How the mythology develop around that ivory? That's like me writing a mythology about, I don't even know what, having diamonds in my backyard. It's like, yeah.
Well, luckily I haven't gotten to that point yet because the book is going to now be a series. So there's going to be at least 3 books within the series. So it'll get more into it because I do this to myself all the time. I don't know why, but I saddle myself with complicated storylines, and I haven't written anything new because I'm waiting to see how to get beyond a certain point within the book.
Yeah.
And I have a great editor that's helping me build it. The problem is that the spell that she is cast with has a 10-year shelf life. So now I have to figure out a way to realistically time jump 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can just do it, can't you?
No, because you want to make sure that, you know, how you do it is a realistic way of doing it. And where it's going to fall in. It's not that easy because I already have a few time jumps that I don't want to confuse the reader any more than, so far so good. I've had really great feedback that it's progressing real smoothly. They're not confused, but there's a twist in the story that, I don't want to add more confusion to what the reader is going to read. So
could you do it like, if you're doing more than one book, could you do it at the beginning of your next book, or as like the prologue in the next book?
It's a possibility, because I'm going to leave the first one. I'm going to leave A Dormant Howl on a cliffhanger. So when I go into the second book, which is going to be more of the other lead female, her point of view, because it starts off more with Desdemona, and we call her Desi. So it's more, the first one is more of Desi's story, how and why she did what she did. And then it's a little bit of Delta, which is the next girl, and how she became, or how she took over Desi's role, which will go into the second one. So it's something that I can definitely work with and try to plan out. But how I'm going to end the first book, not 100% sure. What I can always do is probably, because it's only going to be about 40 chapters, the first one.
Only.
Well, hey,
Es so magnifico.
A class of 9 and 5 was 60.
That's what I'm saying. Why? That's sexy.
But Class of 95 was a fairly fast read. It may have been hey.
I'm sorry, 600,000. I'm not that fast.
Class of 95 it may have been a long with heavy chapters, but it was a decently fast.
Like it was fast paced, yeah.
It was fast paced, so it didn't feel like you're reading 60 chapters. With this book, I want it to be the same way, but there's a lot of history and folklore. I still haven't even gotten into the Native American folklore, skinwalkers. So, and that's something completely different, because to be an outsider of a native tribe, you can't get a lot of information for research.
Yeah.
Man, I actually just had an author talking to me about that. She lives in New Mexico, and her story ties into the same thing.
Yeah.
And she was saying the exact same thing, that she went out and did real research for it, and there was just a wall that she hit frequently.
Yeah.
Because
they briefly talk about it.
They won't tell a certain part of the history to white folks. And even crazier is that they'll even lie and not say, they'll just go oh yeah, it was this and that happened, and they won't even say well really.
But then they get mad.
I think that's even worse too, because at least if you just omit to anything, then you can let the mind wander. But if you tell a person that this is what happened, then you just you build an entire narrative off that broken branch, basically.
Right, but then they get mad when that person who writes it gets it wrong. Well, dude.
Yeah, but what is that going to translate into? There's going to be a whole riot outside your house of.
No, but then they get J.K. Rowling's tried to do that.
J.K. Rowling is okay. She's all right.
but she got real flack because she tried to incorporate Native American folklore in her books.
And Harry Potter, or another?
Not
one?
Harry Potter, another one, and she got real backlash from it, because she didn't get the right information. But there's no real information that you can get. I mean, I could change the tribe to Navajo, because Navajo has more publication of skinwalker folklore.
I was actually about to say that.
But it's already written and published on Inked that they're Apache. Which
just
Apache... I could, and it's a possibility, but the Apache tribe, are more centered towards mystical practices that I'm wanting to incorporate in the story. They have a balance of mysticism and physical reality that they interweave within their religion, which is appealing to my story, and it works. The Navajo don't practice the same religion aspects. So that's why when they do rituals, they do spirit walks, they always have some type of hallucinogen that is used in their rituals. Navajo don't never practice that aspect of their religion. But the Apache, they do, but it's not to the degree that the Apache did. Their Apache religion is more within on how they can have the balance between magical aspects, and physical. So it works better with the story. But there's very little research that I found on it, because with skinwalkers, it's such a taboo topic. They don't talk about them. It's like they're Voldemort, it's known about. It's real to them, but they don't discuss it.
Well, they conceptualize things in different ways, which is probably why they hide a good amount of their history.
Yeah.
So like even just the idea of taking a picture, they believe that having like a picture, having another source of something with your image on it is like it takes a part of your soul.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So and they just conceptualize things. To a different level, and even that is like interesting because, I mean, they're still human at heart. So I would love to just like sit down and I guess like pick at the brain and just like see at what point that deviates and what is, I guess, nurture versus nature.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like again, I mean, even the whole thing with like the drug use and everything like that. I mean, just of basically Nancy Reagan and like the whole like drug aware thing. There's just like this like stigma of the word even drug, which even to them that wasn't even calling it as a drug is like disrespectful. That's like calling like a church like I don't like some like town square. I don't even know. I don't even know that like to them shamanism and like priesthood and all that type of stuff that was the highest.
Yeah.
That was the government. That was the acting body of religion. That was everything that you followed. But
yeah,
there was actually I think Vicky was actually about to say something. Did you?
I think I felt like I could relate to, especially like like the way like the tribes try to protect, I guess, that side of their culture, because I feel like in Haiti we get that a lot. The country was occupied many times, and one aspect that was very much exploited was the concept of zombies, which is something that like is mainstream now, but not a lot of people know that concept actually comes from here. And it's crazy because if you ask a Haitian what a zombie is, they'll give you a completely different definition of what Americans think they look like. And I even saw that. I remember that one time I saw a documentary of a guy that was going around, and he was like, okay, so I'm talking about to this priest, and he's telling me this. And then in the end, he was like, so it was all a lie. But I was like, no, dude, you saw what you needed to see. You just didn't realize what was there. Yeah. So it's like the world has like their own views and shapes of what it is that they're expecting. And when they're met with something that is not up to their expectation, it's like they just try to add something to it. And that, I feel like that's where the misrepresentation comes from. So at that point, when you come back, they're like, no, you already took advantage of it. We're not showing you anymore. And so yeah.
I love how you went into that, because you don't even have to go that far into the terms of like the world. I mean, I am Dominican. I share an island. We were occupied by the same, conquistadors and, just different countries and all these different things. And even the stigma for, how Haitians view like magic and all those things in my country is like insane. You know what I mean? It's like just like, or even, within the country, there's like kind of like the more like Native American, like not Native American obviously, but like the natives that still like hunt and gather and do all those things. Even the way that
Yeah.
I guess the civilized folk look at them, it's just like, it completely just shuns out like a part of history that was like there. The Caribe tribe, which is like they settled in both Haiti and DR, were bloodthirsty. I talked to Laurie about this in for another work, and they were bloodthirsty. I mean, the idea of cannibalism has a heart in there as well. And the reason they believe in cannibalism is because they had these conquistadors come over that were completely different than anything they've ever seen. Fair skinned, are clad in armor, have boats that they've never seen before. And their version of like how to best their enemy was to get their knowledge. And to get that knowledge, they had to eat the brain. That was like the idea. And that's where, and even like the whole idea of like cannibalism, like when you see cannibalism, it's like that, like hills have eyes type of shit. Like just like, like Hannibal Lecter type of shit. But like to them, it was more like like a spiritual process. Same thing as like the Aztecs. They were rolling heads off of their ziggurats for purpose. Now, whether that purpose was purposeful, I guess that's up to the observer, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind
But
of.
to them,
like,
they believed in
yeah.
it, and to me, I think that's the most interesting aspect of religion is the conviction. Is
Right.
whether they believe in it or not. Whether you believe it as the interpreter is irrelevant if they believe in it.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like what Vicky said.
Vicky,
It's not like
I'm sorry.
it's not as if the guy that you were watching the documentary of, he was lied to. I mean, it to a degree. No, he was, but there's purposes for that. There's
Exactly.
purposes because they don't want they did it intentionally. They
don't want their culture to be
lied to him.
bastardized.
Yeah,
Exactly. Because it's
doesn't-
been done before.
right.
It's been done before.
And he doesn't want, they don't want it publicized. They don't want to be made a mockery of. They don't want their practices and their ideals to be subjugated against, because they've spent their entire lives living that life and being berated because of what they practice. So of course the intention, that's what Native Americans do too. When you want to tell a story, they don't tell you the whole truth. They don't tell you anything because they don't want their practices to be manipulated.
And well on them. I mean, that is if
It's
you
like
slapped
with
around a
Jews.
person for 4 years, are you really going to get mad at them in the 5th year when they're like, hey, I don't like this anymore? It's like, no,
But it's like with
sense.
Jews too, and the occult. Jews don't feel, traditional Jews, religious Jews, don't practice. They don't talk about Kabbalah. And Kabbalah, to a certain degree, has become very much mainstreamed, very much practiced by people that are not Jewish, that don't see the aspect of magic and the occult behind it. So any religious Jew, any reputable rabbi will not discuss Kabbalah.
Oh, you're gonna get me too. I'm gonna get 1,000 of emails from people saying, I practice. I'm a rabbi. I practice Kabbalah. How can you say I'm not legitimate?
They're not though. They're not though. Any. That's why they have separate buildings, separate houses of practice and worship that are Kabbalah based and non-Kabbalah based. Any conservative rabbi, any Orthodox, Hasidim, they stay away from Kabbalah. It's too metaphysical for them. Hasidim, Orthodox, they're the echelon of the Jewish faith.
I always thought it was pronounced echelon. Is it echelon? And I'm not like calling you out. I'm Spanish. I always say it wrong because I always like read
It's echelon.
It's okay. I don't know.
Echelon. Don't ask me to spell it. I just know how to pronounce it.
You see, I can spell it, but I can't pronounce it.
No, I can't.
We work. We're like the super friends. We can put our things together and become the shape of water in a bucket.
Like my husband was raised conservative. And anytime that I ever mentioned to him, he's like, oh, no. He's like,
oh my God, he sounds like an actor starting up.
He's like, there's no such thing. He's like, there's no such thing as Kabbalah. Kabbalah is not real. And because he believes if it's in the Bible, it's real, it's what it is. And I wasn't raised that way. So our households were completely different, and our household here. But I know who I am. I wouldn't necessarily read the Kabbalah. It has a lot to do with numbers and metaphysics. It's different, but it's not necessarily something that the Jewish community goes out and talks about.
Well, perhaps it's just metaphysical in a different way, because I mean, you're talking about the Torah, which is a holy text. You can't tell me a holy text isn't metaphysical in some sense.
It depends on who you talk to. Religion as a whole is subjective. Same thing with books and what you read, and literature and how you interpret. Great
segue. I actually wanted to do like the capstone into like serializations and kind of like sequels of books and everything. So Vicky had started Vicky and Laurie actually kind of continued kind of perfectly with the whole idea of serializations. Now, Brittany, I'm actually interested in hearing your opinion first, because, well, like me, it's actually kind of perfect that it's like divided to the top versus north, is we don't do the Inca and Wattpad thing. So now hearing everything, and not only just hearing the testimonies from these two, but also just knowing about the industry itself, I actually myself am looking into doing that in order to start promoting Iris of Mercy, which is book 2 of my serialization and XYZ. And I'm doing it just with the idea of releasing chapters, and then when I like maybe the last 2 chapters I just omit, and then when it comes to publish, I just take everything off and continue on with that. And it serves a cool purpose because you basically get free content editing, right? If any reader like points out like a plot error, that's free money that you don't have to pay somebody like $700 to $2,000 for. And then when everything is set, you can kind of just like go back, pick and choose what chapters did right, and kind of just so you can do like your own market research. But even then, I'm new to the environment. So what do you think? Do you think it's something that you're more open to? Do you think it's something that you'll dive into with following books, and also serializations in general? Like, what do you plan to do? Is there going to be a Life of Shadows book 2? Is there going to be Element? Is Element going to be a saga? I think we talked about that before, but for the people that are unaware.
Yeah. I like your idea about giving like most of your book onto one of those sites, and then just like omitting the last little bit so that hopefully they'll
got to pay the bills. Jesus.
Yeah, with I don't know, I guess I'll have to do a bit of tinkering and see what all the different formats are, and if like a graphic representation will work on a site like that. But as for the first Element, will be at least a trilogy, if not longer. And I'm writing them as volumes with like a few chapters in each, or few issues. It would be if it was released as like as a graphic novel.
Oh my God, I'm telling you, everything ties together.
Yeah, exactly. So even though I'm intending to publish it as a book, I think I will try to release like one chapter at a time or one issue at a time, the way typical comics are done, just because I think that A, I could have it cheaper that way, and B, I could even have the first one free, and then the second one you pay for it. So I think I could probably rope people in a little bit more, just with like the lower price or the freebie part of it. And then personally, I like buying them as a graphic novel because it's cheaper and it stays intact longer because it's an actual book instead of just like a magazine. Yeah, so I'll probably do both.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And again, I'm 100% with you. I have no idea of how to actually navigate in between the things either. So just 100% on there. I will be honest though. Yeah, actually, no, I can't even say that. Laurie,
yes.
How are you feeling about the serializations and all that? Well, we already know how you're feeling about the whole Wattpad and everything, but
yeah,
what are you doing as far as sequels? Is there going to be a class of 96? Is there going to be Dormant Howls with a Z?
There's actually sequels I'm working. Well, I'm not working on them actively right now because I'm in a bit of a block. So, and I'm one of those writers, I can only focus on one work at a time. Because if I overexert myself,
Romantic.
basically. So I am working on doing a sequel to a book I only had on Wattpad called Lady in His Dream. So that's going to have a sequel. Yeah, we never talked about it.
Vicky must have
Aw.
read that one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Everyone collectively sighed. How did you time that? That was crazy. You heard that? Yo, oh my God, that was how did that happen? All right, I'm sorry.
So
Continue.
that one's going to have a sequel. And Class of 95 will have a sequel. It's going to be called Class of Justice, where that's going to be centered around Jake's daughter and her boyfriend and another man that no one knew that she was having a relationship with.
Bing, bong, bang.
Then there's going to be a spin-off that is going to involve David, Connie, and Christoph. They're my throuple in Class of 95. And so it's going to be a book that's basically a standalone. It's going to involve the main core characters from Class of 95, but it would be a standalone because it's the points of view on how the three of them got together, and especially with David being how he discovers that he's not just homosexual, but he's pan. So it's a story of his journey.
He's Pan, the god of nature. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
So it's going to be a story of that, and there's going to be a sequel to A Dormant Howl. There's at least going to be 3. Then I'm working on other projects that I have in my head, and slowly but surely I'll start working on those. But yeah, I'm working on a few sequels. So,
Vicky.
Yes. I'm not really working on any sequels right now because I feel like the way that
Hazel.
yeah, okay. I feel like especially about sequels is like I I I feel like I feel like
Sorry.
it's okay. I
It's
feel
my
like
favorite.
yeah, oh we know. I feel like the some stories like kind of just have a nice, finished ending to it, and then you can just easily transition into something, especially like if the book has like a like a great fan base or something, and having a sequel or like a book 2 could add to the storyline altogether. But I also feel like if the story doesn't call for it necessarily, it's good to leave it at that. So I feel like there's some stories that like are amazing, and then like the author goes ahead and makes a second one and a third one, and you're like, where are you going with this? Like, we were good at one. So I feel like if like in those moments, I feel like I kind of listen a little bit to my audience and see exactly like where they're going with this, and then find inspiration based off of, because readers will bring up their own like little fan fictions or whatever it is that they want to see, and then if that is interesting enough of a story, then I guess I can go along with it, Laurie. So there's a chance.
Well,
Do you have
yeah.
a book that you're working on right now, or are you just kind of like on pause for a bit?
I am still working on them. I work on multiple projects at a time. I don't know why I do that to myself, but I'm on multiple projects at a time. So I'm right now finishing up one of my longest stories, actually. And I feel like from this one, I'll definitely need to take especially a mental break, because the subject matter is really graphic, I guess. So it really, like, whenever I need to get back and work on it, it has like a toll on, my mental wellness a little bit.
Evil.
So
she's evil.
Oh my God. So I feel like, like the second I'm done with this one, I guess it's all about, like reviewing everything and see if everything actually flows together, if I didn't miss anything. And once that done, I guess I'll just let people eat it up and see what's the verdict for a sequel, Laurie.
I really empathize with that. Very
Keep
first
evil.
time, my first draft of Allegory, and like when I first ever started like writing, I like got to like chapter 18 and had like a mental breakdown. It was like it felt like it was one of those things that like everything that I was writing seemed like it would happen. I would like write something, and the day after that, I'd be like, what the fuck is this shit?
Well, Hazel is a story that is mentally draining, and in a good way. In a good way. I love you, and you know that. But but it is even for the reader. I mean, for the writer, for Vicky, I can see why she would have to take a break from that subject matter. But for the reader, there are moments in that book story where I want to cause somebody else physical harm. It's and I get tired when I read it, not in a bad way, but I get so tired because I feel for the characters. And to be honest, it's fiction. So you're like, that really can't happen in real life. But you're like, no, it does. It can, and it does, which makes it extremely horrifying and scary. But at the same time, where she writes her character now is beautiful, because she, within like the last 5 or 6 chapters, it's like a complete, the main character went through a complete and utter change, physically, emotionally, and it was beautiful to read. But now I'm at a part in the book where if I can slap her, I would. Because it's kind of like, dude, she went, they all of the main characters are going through this huge traumatic event. And
it's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it.
And you're doing this to them. I'm like, come on, haven't they been through enough? You suffer the whole damn book. They all deserve. I want them to skip away in a green, beautiful field of wildflowers, all holding hands, singing Kumbaya. That's what I want for her ending, because they all deserve it, and it's really, really sad and emotional for me.
It's not the end.
I'm so invested.
Well, you heard it here first. I mean, if that isn't a good enough sales pitch to check out Hazel on Wattpad, is it also on Inkit, or is it just Wattpad?
It's only on Wattpad.
All right, so Hazel, Wattpad, check it out. Vicky, Maurice, and what is your handle again on Wattpad for the people listening?
Christy M01.
Christy M01. And if you can't remember, just remember Icky Vicky, like the song from Fairly Odd Parents, and Maurice, which you can spell it like Maurice if you really want to, but you can't, because it's like with a U in it or some shit too. And
totally got your name wrong, just FYI.
Laurie Oknowsky, and that one is actually spelled OK Now and Sky.
Yes, very good.
And Laurie spelled just how you would Google it, right?
Yes.
So, Laurie, where can people find KVAD? Where can people find you? All the works, Wattpad, Inkit. Where can people find you?
I'm on Inkit under Laurie _writes_stories. I'm on BookNet, the same as my Inkit. I'm on Instagram, Laurie Writes Stories. I'm on the other one is, I'm like a complete and utter blank now. TikTok. And and I have my website, laurieoknowsky.com.
Okay, now Sky. And actually, to double back on Victoria, what could you the Instagram and other social media aspects. I'm sorry I didn't, just limit it to Wattpad. Where can people find you on Instagram? I believe no other Twitter and anything like that. Just Instagram and Wattpad, right?
Yes, it's the same thing. Christy M01. Same old thing. Yep.
Christy M01. Down to business. Out now. Pick it up. Out on Amazon. Hazel on Wattpad. And if Laurie's testimonial wasn't enough, I mean, what do you want, people? What do you want?
Right?
And again, Laurie, a Dormant Howl up now on Wattpad. No, not on Wattpad anymore. On Inkit.
Yep.
Inked. And then there is Class of 95 available on Amazon. And both Laurie and Vicky are sisters for the same publishing house.
Yes.
Yokimoto. What was
Yukioto.
it again? Yokioto. It almost sounds like yo quiero in Spanish. It means I want. Anyway,
and now our books are available on hardback.
Hey, hardback available. Get it now. Dormant Howl, Down to Business, Class of 95, Boom Beam Bow. Brittany, where can people find your works? Where can people find you for Element, which isn't coming out yet, but will be at the start of 2022, right? I think that's around where you have it projected.
Yeah, the goal was for June of 2022. I don't know that it'll be quite ready for that.
So I hear you. I said in November my book would be coming out in January, and we'll just leave it there. And
where's my calendar?
Where's my calendar? Somewhere in fires and pile of ashes. But anyway.
Brittany, yes. I have the children's book, The Life of a Shadow, out for ages 0 and up. It's available on Amazon, all Amazons. You can also find it on my website, authorbrittanyleonard.com. And I have a link as well on my Instagram, which is at authorbrittanyleonard. And yeah, Elements on its way. I tend to post both about The Life of a Shadow and Element graphic novel on Instagram if you are interested in following along.
And make sure to do so. She posts all her own art. You can really go along and go with the flow and just how everything is going. I think it's just awesome, everything you're doing on that. And again, I just love the idea that, especially that's a graphic novel, there's such a visual aspect to go along and just like denote almost like the gantry of how the creation of the work is going to come along. Phenomenal. Make sure to pick it up. Life of a Shadow on Amazon. Element coming through your soon. You know what I mean? Now,
thank you for your enthusiasm.
No, of course. I believe it like a motherfucker. Trust. Now, but I guess Vicky did not agree with it. Oh, anyway.
She keeps going in and out.
Now, final thoughts. Brittany. Any last little testimonials, any things you want to say? Shout out to the cat, keeping it real.
Well, it was lovely to meet Vicky and Laurie today. Hadn't met.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
To hear about your books and to hear all of your enthusiasm for each other, which is always just good.
Yeah, she's stuck with me for life.
Like a shadow.
Likewise.
And it ties up to Life of a Shadow. Come on. I'm telling you, it's like we wrote this episode beforehand.
Right.
Laurie, final thoughts. Where can people, give some people some motivation? I don't know.
God, just keep working. Practice, and keep doing what you love to do.
Practice. I don't know why. Every time I have like this child brain. I just want to like sing song the last sentence.
It's a song.
Yeah.
Practice too much.
Practice makes perfect.
You see what I'm saying? It just goes perfect. I don't know what it is. Vicky, Victoria. I'm sorry. I automatically just nickname people. I have a horrible tendency to do that. I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry with the Vicky thing. I'll just call you Victoria.
That's all right.
Maurice.
Well, what advice could I give people?
Well, just final thoughts. Don't have to be advice.
Yeah. Well, you're still as good of a host as you were last time, and that's amazing. I feel like when I just started, I was a little teeny bit nervous. I don't know why. It's like I get stage fright from like 2 people, but the environment was really nice and warm and wholesome and everything, and I feel like we should see more of that. like authors just being there for each other and like talking about all these amazing creative aspects and all of that. That's just it warms my heart.
Thank you. I mean, if I can be honest, it's nothing. I mean, I get nervous before these two. Really, the driving point is, y'all just like being able to like really talk and sit back and really like dive into each other's works. And I mean, especially in a world of like social media, there's a lot of bullshit and a lot of people that do things in order just to get like notoriety on their end. But I'm telling you, on my end, all I care about is just like the real connection between other authors. And just the reason I started this podcast is because I remember I would talk to my friend about the works I would have, and I would just see his eyes glaze over. And it was just, I just got that hit of like, yeah, it's because I'm talking to a person that doesn't give a fuck about writing.
Yeah.
About writing.
Yeah.
Like if I just found people that, also like doing this, we could talk forever, and point fucking proven.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for everyone that's come on again. Brittany, Laurie, Victoria, pick up their works, do what you got to do. If you can't do it out of love, do it out of spite, but buy the book. If you got to buy just for a book burning, okay, but buy two, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, thank you. This is the end of the podcast. AR Sales, aka the A.R.T podcast. Check with us on Monday, Friday, and Wednesdays. I don't know why I put it in that order, but hey, you do whatever you got to do too, okay? You love yourself. All right, this is the end of the podcast. Peace out.